Yeah,
the right side of your face isn't sagging anymore.
You look like hell.
You've been watching.
I was watching, and I was worried for you.
Look at how young Richard looked.
Big boat.
We couldn't think of crossing over the finish line without you.
He can still look that young.
Sully, you
virtually.
beautiful son of a bitch.
Now, here's a question I've been asking him, but I want to know from you.
Let's see if I remember. It's been a while.
When you're envisioning this, when you're writing this, when you're capturing this, is this what you saw in your head?
Yeah. Yeah,
Really?
I mean, sure.
Sorry you didn't get
It's
your
hard to
story.
say because it's an iterative process, right? I mean,
Sure.
but you've got concept art, you're thinking about the music. Like, it all comes together. I don't want to talk over your sweet moment.
Oh, you know what? I remember mocapping this like it was yesterday.
Really?
And how we talked like, should they kiss at the end? And she's like, no.
Too much?
No, it's just because it's so cliche.
It would be too on the nose
Yeah.
or on the lips.
Well
Hey.
done,
I
Nolan.
did it. I have
Finally.
goosebumps. Look at my hair. I got goosebumps. I got
Look at
goosebumps,
that.
guys.
Look at that. Art direction, Bruce Straley. Game director,
Yeah,
Amy Hennig.
yeah.
Who else is? Josh Scher.
Josh, sure.
Richard LeMarchand.
Wow.
He's
Eric Baldwin.
Everybody.
Eric Baldwin. Lucas Pope.
A lot of those people are still there.
Game designers Neil Druckmann. That kid's got no career.
No.
He's got no future. in the
No
business.
future. So it really does match the movie that you had out in your mind?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I'm trying to remember because it was what? I mean, 12 years ago now, almost.
That it came out, but I mean, you'd worked on it, obviously.
Yeah, I worked on it since 2004. And so, but you've used it in your backdrops. It's a wonderful concept art that you kind of imagine behind the scenes, and because everything's being developed at the same time, I mean, like, you can be looking at the level in production and see what it looks like, and it's already getting lit or something, or maybe I've described to Greg Edmondson, our composer, what's happening. He's
That's
already
me.
starting to.
Nathan Drake, Nolan North.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's already starting to score it, so I can, you kind of like mush it together in your mind, but. Yeah, I mean...
I have to ask, have you played the game?
Of course I've
Okay.
played the game.
Now, you would think that would be the obvious thing, but...
Hundreds of times.
This guy...
It was so painful watching you... I'm
But
sorry,
you-
no offense. Watching you play. And you going triangle, triangle, triangle. It's like, God damn it, circle. I'm just like clenching my fist. Like,
At
go over
two,
there, over
Amy?
there. Yeah, yes. I am a big
Do I need these anymore?
remote
Gary
know-it-all.
Roberts.
Troy,
Wow.
do I
Huh?
need
Yeah,
these
we
anymore?
probably don't.
No.
Yeah, we probably don't.
Wow.
Job well done, guys.
Yes. I'm
Well,
glad I could join you for
Thank you to
the
Astro.
end of things here.
I'll take those from you.
Yes, you will.
this is pretty amazing. So we've been talking about so much. I've been able to tell them so much about the development of what we did and how I think it's interesting. Number one, we didn't capture audio.
No, we
the way
had
we
we
did.
had lav mics.
We
It'll probably
ADR'd it.
touch mine if I'm not careful. Yeah, because there was no soundstage. There was no mocap soundstage.
Right.
So we were just in a big hangar-like building, which of course, had all kinds of reverb. So we did put mics on you, but they were just for reference. And then we had to literally ADR the whole thing. So what I would do after we completed the performance and we picked the takes we liked, I would literally transcribe what you guys did down to ums, ers, breaths, ellipses.
Did you really?
Yeah. And then we would bring that in to the ADR booth.
That
And
sounds
then-
like a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. The whole thing was a lot of work. But the thing was, of course, because all the facial animation for 1 through 3 was all done by hand, it was hand keyed, you weren't trying to match lip flaps when you were ADRing. You were just matching the overall performance. But you had your original performance and our best takes to go from.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. We did.
And then we animated your face once you ADR'd it.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of work to do that twice, which is why for number 2 we worked with House of Moves to actually build a soundstage inside that
That's
big,
right, I remember.
gigantic warehouse.
Though you guys were responsible for that.
Yes.
So the stages in the stage, because there's the huge
There's the stage
stages
inside
outside.
the stage,
You're like,
yeah.
oh no, you're going actually, because we shot God of War there, not the most recent God of War,
Right.
but God
the
of War
original
3,
one.
Ascension.
And
no, Ascension.
I think Heavenly Sword was shot. I mean, like.
There's a bunch of stuff, but it's a
Yeah,
much
yeah.
smaller stage.
Much
and then
smaller
I remember
stage.
at like 3 o'clock, there was like a daycare or something, a play school, and I was like, well, that's our tea break.
There were always airplanes and seagulls and children.
Everybody has
right?
built their mocap
The
stage.
seagulls.
Yeah, seagulls. Everybody
Oh,
builds
yeah.
their mocap stage down like by
It's insane.
LAX and right by the beach.
That's why I love shooting at Sony's stage in Playa. It's just dead silent.
yeah, no
Yeah.
one's around.
The news, yeah.
Do you know I walked in their first time on the new stages, and I walked in, it says North Stage, and I was like, wow. They named it after
So
me, and
honored.
they said, you're not working here today, you're working on the South Stage.
He's like, I understand now what I said.
Now I see. This
Did
is
you-
direction, not
No,
endearment.
There've been a couple of games that have shipped recently, and you always want to send well wishes to those and congratulations to the studio, no matter what the game is, because any game that ships is a miracle.
Absolutely, yeah.
But when you ship that game, most people that I've talked to are like, we don't feel like we're shipping. It says go gold. You're like, you never feel like you shipped a game that went gold. You're
No,
like,
yeah.
You feel like you're shipping a broken game, but regardless.
It's still painful to watch it even 12 years later.
Right, because there's so many things you would
You're
change.
like, God, why didn't we fix that? It was funny, I was watching, I just saw the first 4 episodes, I think, are online.
Yeah.
And I was watching some of the layout, and that area in the jungle right after you arrive with the plane, and it has like kind of the arches, half of them are falling down, and there's like a wave of guys, and then another wave of guys, and there's an upper area. It was the very first area we built.
Really?
Yeah.
Of all of
So Bruce and,
I had a
and Richard
lot of
Lamarche,
trouble
I
in that
think,
area.
I watched you, and I felt awful. Or actually, I should say that Bruce and Richard Lamarche should feel awful. But because the thing is, we were learning, right? And so all those diagonal jumps, I mean, that's just level design 101. Don't do that. Like all the things you were having trouble
There were
finding.
a lot of
no visual,
jumps.
no
Like,
visual
surely we
language.
we should be jumping that way.
Yeah.
But there's no way that you
But you found it.
Did you have the hope that you were launching? You weren't just shipping a game, but you were launching a franchise, or was it just get this thing out the door?
Well,
Like,
you always hope. Like, okay, so this is the reason it's called Uncharted and not Drake's
One.
Fortune up top. It's Uncharted because if he completely tanked, we would call it something else the next time. It would be Uncharted, Bob's Fortune. Because
Really? I was
Sorry.
on that tight of a
wait.
line? I was on that fine of a line and didn't know it? Wow.
I mean, the character, not you.
The
Nolan.
universe
But
was built, but the character
meaning-
was very much
And
in
look, you
flux.
already
You meant
see
the
it.
character, not you. I was
you
the
are
character.
the character, I know.
It was me. Oh, wow.
Down
So
to
if I
everyone
had...
else.
Hey,
if
what
I-
happened to that Nathan guy?
Well, you got
He died in the end. He fell off the boat.
you got to have insurance, right? Just because you don't know if it's going to hit. But the idea of going
That's
to,
why Elena. That's
Yeah,
why
that's right.
Sully.
Well, I mean,
Who did
that
you
allows
like?
for a lost legacy, doesn't it? If we had called it the Nathan Drake Adventures, we'd be screwed. That's not how
That's
you want to
not
brand
true.
a thing.
Would have been genius.
It's a whole alternate reality.
Not one I'd like to go down.
Yeah.
There's that famous video of Cory Barlog as he's watching the Metacritic scores, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
it-
just so
yeah.
sweet and pure.
it's pure. It's
Yeah.
exactly the word.
and I
Did
know
you
that
have your
feeling.
moments?
It's sort of a blur. What you have, what I recognize in that moment is the exhaustion. The absolute physical, mental, spiritual, psychological exhaustion of finishing something like this. And you're still on tenterhooks because you don't know how it's going to be received, right? You don't know. I mean, granted, we had some stuff out, at E3 and things like that, but you just don't know if it's going to land. And so when you see those results come in, the kind of the wash of relief that you feel is overpowering. But also, we talk about this sometimes, because you're working so hard for so long on something you're 100% dedicated, 100 and 200% dedicated to, you also have the sort of postpartum depression,
Of course.
right? And so you don't know what to do with yourself after you finish the game. Like, I couldn't even sit still. I couldn't sit down. I would try to go on vacation. I would just pace around because you're like, I should be doing something. Like,
Ken
you're
Levine
you're
talks about
conditioned.
that as well. I know
Yeah.
you guys are friends as well, and he goes, it's his least favorite thing to do is to ship a game. He's
Yeah.
like, now what do I do with my
Yes,
life?
right. Yeah, and your whole reality and identity is built around being there at work, working on the game, being on the team. And then also, you're also looking at, look, if it does well, because yes, the hope is that you're going to do a sequel, right? But, I mean, you got to have the humility to go, it might be a one and done, right? But you hope you're going to do a sequel, but then you're also going, how are we going to top this, right? And like,
We have to do it again.
right? And
Only
so,
better and
you know,
bigger.
after that first sort of wave of relief and joy, you go, oh shit, you know, like, now what do we do?
Yeah, but
With less than 2 years. I know, but you know, but
Well, we'll get there. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm curious. There are always babies that die. There's babies that are born.
Wow.
But you don't
Dark.
admit.
Wow, is that where we're going?
Yeah.
Is that always
So,
babies that die? Good
there's
night,
always-
everybody.
As a writer, as a creator, you're like, this is the thing that I love. This is the one thing I wanted to make sure lasted.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in the first one
that got
that got
any baby
cut,
that got murdered?
What baby?
What baby
Had
should
to
we
kill your
murder?
baby.
You know, it's usually not an entire thing that gets cut. It's usually a dumbed down version of what you wanted to do. Because the problem is with a game like this that is all seamed together and you have all the story progression and all the landmarks, is like if you pull something out, you can't pull threads like you can with other games, right? Now suddenly the thing doesn't hook up anymore, or if you've lost a key plot point, or your pacing is shot, right? And so what would happen is things that, you know, were going to be action sequences turn into cutscenes, or things that were supposed to be 20 minutes long turn into 5 minutes long, and you go, well, okay, so the scaffolding is still there, not our ideal solution, but you know, one of the hardest things to do was when we would get to the end. You had such story propulsion that when we try to do the Scooby-Doo thing, where you have the mystery kind of unveiled, but there's no time for any exposition. It's sort of like. I remember racing through it. It's like, oh, this must be in the Spaniards. I mean, you know, like even your Spaniards
Yeah.
line, they were just in the last episode. Like,
Yeah.
the Spaniards, they never left.
They never
That's
left,
enough.
Sully.
Keep playing.
They never left. Yeah, and we just go. What did he just
That's
say?
your explanation. Yeah, they're still here.
I remember
They're
hearing.
not zombies. Just
I
go
remember
with it.
hearing that. I was running down the
Yeah.
staircase.
Right.
Sully said, "What?" We don't even know if he
Sometimes
heard
we
me.
would do that, right? We
Yeah.
would put in little comments about, like, you know, sort of self-referential, like, how does that make any sense, you know? But like, in this one, I mean, obviously we wanted the jet ski to be better. I apologize
Oh,
for
the
ski.
jet skis.
It had such potential, and it was just sort of an
It was
orphaned
brutal.
baby.
I remember when I first played, I was like,
Yeah.
this is gonna be fun. And then cut
is
to
not
5 minutes
fun.
later, I was like, I want to find the designer of this and I want to throttle them.
Yeah, that was Richard. Richard did the Sunken Ruins. Richard
LaMarchand?
LaMarchand, yeah. I mean, and this is not on them because we just didn't have time. And Bruce did God, to his credit, he did that run up river because it wasn't going to happen. It was going to get cut, and he's just like, I'm just doing it. But the problem is you know, to really enjoy something like that, a vehicle like that, you need some wide open spaces. But my God, that's a lot of terrain.
Oh, no,
to
no,
build,
no.
right?
It's narrow. And then there's nothing but obstacles.
you don't have to
It's
tell
not
me.
like, hey, no, just give
That's
yourself
right.
a second
and you
to
have things to shoot
familiarize.
at, and things to explode. Yeah, I apologize.
I'm just glad that they didn't have. You had to pick up ammo. You know, the fact that Elena had unlimited ammo, didn't have to reload.
That would have been
Yeah.
murderous.
I want to know
It's
who.
hard when you're working on something like this. You know that part is suboptimal, but there's just no time to fix it. So
Everybody
you're like,
remembers it.
I
Everybody
don't know what
remembers it.
suboptimal means. I enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
mean, it was
you
hard,
enjoyed
but I
the
was like,
idea of it, but yeah,
yeah, I want to know who came up with the slippery naked guys.
I was about to say, at what point in your writing
that's
process did
me.
you go, you know what, this game,
is what this game
needs slippery naked eyes.
More
But
nudity.
wait,
Oh man,
more.
and even in the,
Damp
even
come
in the,
after
they're very anatomically.
Are they? I never looked
Well, they're
that
not.
close.
They're very non-gender specific, but you can still see just the remains of something there.
There was no physics or anything, though. There's just some vague genitalia.
just some.
I know, and then people work.
vague genitalia.
There's just some vague genitalia.
That actually
God,
had to
you
be on
wanna
the
make
ESRB
it.
If I had a
ratings.
nickel.
You
That's
know,
on
some
you.
smoking, some drinking, and vague genitalia.
Yes.
The ESRB. That got us up to an
That's
M.
what it. Hey,
yeah.
you got an M. Wait, vague genitalia. That's what'll do it.
Yeah.
But
No.
how far along in the process
No,
of
that was always the idea. Because, look, some of this is drawn from classic pulp adventure stories. So Doc Savage is a huge inspiration. And if you look at the Doc Savage stories, they were sort of proto-Scooby-Doo stories. So the idea was there was always some mystery, and you're picking up all these clues going, what's going on here? And there's some weird sign, and it seems like it means this. And then at the end, you know, you kind of pull the rubber mask off. Now, in this case, instead of, you know, our rubber mask was that, you know, plausibly there was a gold sarcophagus that had a virus in it,
Sure.
and then, you know, the really fast-acting virus.
clearly like 30
I know.
seconds.
Well, you know,
That was like a kid with a nut allergy. I think he's like,
cashews.
That's
That's all it was.
yeah, just.
so it was always just the barest bit of plausibility because, you know, again, you don't have time for the exposition, but But that was always meant to be a part of it, is that there's sort of the suggestion of supernatural underpinnings that are either then paid off in some way or explained in some way, right?
Why? There was something that you kind of flipped, a trope that you flipped on its end. Normally it's, there would be a ancillary character or a supplementary character like Elena or Victor that their nemesis is Navarro. Their nemesis is the lieutenant, is the underling, and then the big baddie is obviously the big antagonist is the big protagonist nemesis.
Yeah.
But instead, you dispatched with Roman very quickly and very easily, and outside of player
Well, because
control.
we wanted to subvert, the expectations.
Was that the
Unless
whole...
the trope is already a subversion of expectations. There's, what I'm
Sure.
saying, like you expect it because the subversion is a trope. But we wanted to try to keep the raps on Navarro with the fact that he's just an asshole. Like we didn't want you to think that he had a plan of his own and that it involved offing Roman, right? But then to show that and to show Navarro's dastardliness, then Roman had to go like that, right?
Cool.
Yeah. And as far as I don't know if you were asking do other characters have their own nemesis? Or were
No,
you
I thought that normally if you want to follow the formula,
Yeah.
if you want to open up Blake Snyder, then that's what you do.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't sure if that was if it came out of you were in the writer's room going, wait a minute.
Well, you need twists, right?
What if we did? Sure, but that's not typically one that people make. You always kind of point towards, because you're building towards the culmination of a protagonist and antagonist colliding together, and at the very last minute to go, this guy, which to me became more interesting when you saw Alfred Hitchcock was like a good villain, is one you can empathize with, and when you see Roman kind of just berating him and
Right.
treating him
Well, it makes
like a lesser than.
You've got confused feelings about it because it's like
Sure,
like
I
you
kinda
almost
get it.
Right, exactly. It's sort of like he's justified, and also some of this stuff is too buried because again, you don't have a lot of time for exposition. It's hard in an interactive story, but Navarro, if I recall, was supposed to be Peruvian, mestizo, and
He was just
Well, and so the problem is fundamentally this is sort of like reverse smallpox blanket, right?
Okay.
Which is the idea is that sarcophagus was intended to be a bomb for the colonizing Spanish by the colonized, the Peruvians. But it ended up not going back to the mainland. It ended up going to this island in the middle of the Pacific, and therefore, didn't have a catastrophic effect on our history, but could now because it's sitting there ticking away.
Did you write that, and at what point do you go, no, we have to, this is just part of the story that we have to tell, and then you start scoping and
It's
you go,
implied,
we can't.
right? I mean, that's the problem is that, you're looking at fundamentally where you need your big, not Blake Snyder exactly, because that should just be guidelines, but,
True.
we won't go there. But it's where your major story landmarks hit, and what's needed there for something that is sort of deliberately formulaic because it's very tropey in a good way, right?
Yeah.
So you find that you're hoping that you've laid enough pipe that people can piece things together, and if they're not piecing it together, it's because they're on a rip-roaring ride and they're swashbuckling, and that's fine, right?
Right.
But if you look at the documents, if you read things that are in the diary, you can piece together clues that are sitting there right under your nose, right? And so unfortunately, and look, I'm not saying this is perfect, why would you criticize this? Because I have my own critiques. But the point is that you kind of have to go, Sully, it was the Spaniards all along. They never left. The end, got, shoot,
Deal
run,
with it.
run, right?
Exactly.
See, now, because you've done TV, this is the point where I would normally point to, let's set up a clip of Port Charles.
clips and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, TJ.
You've done film. There's a level of awareness and understanding and knowledge that can only come from going hands-on, which is why we play games, which is why we make games, is so that there's a whole, it's like, I always compare it to, in Star Trek, right now we play chess on one, but when you look at Star Trek, they play chess three-dimensionally. That to me is playing a game. It's thinking about your opponents and the way that he can move, not just in a one-dimensional plane, but in a three-dimensional plane. That to me is games, exactly what you're talking about as far as normally in a film, you can only put your exposition in one place. You have to have the characters talking about it, or you have to have a letter from someone. Here, you can hide it in the world.
And because the details of the story aren't important to everybody, so if you force that on everybody, just stop and read the journal and really expand on that, people will be going, oh my God, really? Just get back to the
It's a
next
20-hour game, but wait.
Right.
The reason why.
So it's
can
sort of
go back
like
and do
you
more.
kind of decide which is sort of primary and which is secondary for a game, right? But we were cribbing from a lot of the structural stuff, obviously, from other pulp adventure films, most notably, of course, Indiana Jones. And so if you look at those films, and I've charted them out, no pun, is the first 14 minutes or so is what we would kind of call the adventure before the adventure, meaning it is sort of this fast-paced, swashbuckling thing that tells you who the character is, gets you all bought in, gets you all excited, because what they're doing is they're buying time for all the belabored historical exposition they have to do about the Ark of the Covenant and things like that.
At least you're bought in at this point.
If they started with that,
you need a rest. No, we got
Well,
you.
you don't know who he is. You don't know what he's all
and also
about.
just you're on the ride now and you're in, right? And so they've earned the time.
Well, if I look
do
at
that.
Indiana Jones, if I look at Raiders
we tried
of
to
the
do the
Lost Ark,
same.
You did it famously and very, very well. Because you look at Raiders of the Lost Ark, you start off with them in the jungle, then finding the idol, the iconic shots, him running away, getting on the plane, and next thing you know, you find out he's a professor. And then when he's sitting there, now he's a learned man, and he's an academic, and he's an erudite.
Well, and then when they talk about the Ark of the Covenant, again, if the movie started with that, you'd just be falling asleep in your seat.
True.
But you're leaning forward because now you're interested about who this guy is and what his journey's going to be. So you can see in the structure of the Uncharted games, it was the same thing. There's a reason we started on the boat. There's a reason we started in medias res on the train in Uncharted 2, because
We'll get there. Don't worry.
I know. We'll just do
better.
that. Let's just go. You don't need to go anywhere. We got.
Let's just keep playing. We have
We
ample
got Guinness.
Yeah.
We got ample Guinness, and
I got nowhere to be.
You have mini games. There are mini games that need to be made.
Got
I think it's
nowhere else
interesting.
to
The funny
be.
thing is,
Just turn
and
off the lights,
after
I'll sit
playing,
here with my beer.
exactly. After playing this, though, I can't help but think about how much this changed my life.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Well, that's what I was
and
leading
don't
to.
know.
Is you've done this now. Now that you've played this, what do you like on the other side?
It's funny because people, I've talked about it before, but this is the best role I've ever had. And I tell my son, who's an actor now, and anybody who wants to be acting, the idea that you it's not that you necessarily are bad. It's just you're either right or you're not.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, and thanks to you, I mean, I was the right guy for this. And to
You
look
were,
back
like-
and play it and go, I was
That's
actually,
what I was
I was
doing?
actually able to separate.
Well, sometimes a director will also just, without telling you what they're helping you find, they help you find it, and they go, we got it, right? So you're building something that
Right.
isn't necessarily made over to the actor because you don't want to get in their head, right? But I've told you this before, out of all the guys we brought in, and no knock on any of them, you were the only guy that came in with any vulnerability and humor. Everyone else was playing the hero because they think a video game, cardboard cutout hero, there was no layers, there was no on your heels aspect. You were the only one that did that. So.
Well, thank God I did, because this is a good game. This is really good.
The next one's even better.
I cannot wait.
Well, we're definitely going to get there. You mentioned him throughout this. It's impossible to talk about the performance capture and not talk about Gordon. But
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I definitely want to know from you. We've talked about his. One of the famous lines I know that you said was so great is there they go, turning our movie into a game. What are some of your memories with Gordon as we go through this first one?
Yeah.
Because you're finding this. People had done cinematic
I don't
games.
even know how to give you a short answer to that.
I remember talking with him.
I mean, he changed my life, right? I mean, he's the mentor of my life.
Right. But I remember talking to him about this when, on breaks, and he just was, he had done everything. And for anybody who doesn't know, Gordon Hunt, I mean, he pretty much ran Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah.
Animation.
Directed the Smurfs.
He's directed television. He won an Emmy for
Speaking of Scooby-Doo.
Mad About You. I mean, look him up. It's ridiculous. And we lost him a short time ago. And he was, I remember talking to him about this, and he was like, I don't know what we're doing, but this seems great. and he had such a great theater background. And one of the things he always hammered into us was be specific with every movement that you make. And you know, and I remember talking to him. I think he was one of the first people who said, somebody said, I don't know how you guys work in this thing. You're looking at nothing. He said, or they're looking at everything. And it was
Exactly
just
it.
this way that you opened up. And he was, I think because of his
He was
theater
this
background.
sweet little Yoda of a man who was just,
He was
you know,
great.
everybody's teacher. And you know, I've told the story before about like so often. I mean, you were there. I would come to the set, no sleep, like been trying to juggle everything on the project and get ready for the shoot, and you know, and thinking about all the things that are stressing me out. And like, and I would come and he'd go like, how are things going? And I go, oh, this, and this, and this. And then he'd kind of go, this is fun. And it was like, it seemed like such a non sequitur. Like
Or
what?
such a simple
But
notion.
what he was saying is like, how blessed are we that this is our
Yeah.
job?
He always made us feel that way.
Yeah. And so his ability to flip everything, his optimism, you would watch him on the sidelines while we were shooting, and he would just be grinning from ear to ear, and he'd be acting it out with them. It's funny, even in the VO booth, I felt so bad for the guy, because I mean, like, how old was he when we were working with him? He was
70s.
late 70s, 80, right? Like, and he'd be sitting there on these long days when everybody's coming in to do effort passes.
He's right there with
And
them.
I could feel him next to me at the table, like, you know, clenching his abs and like over. He must have been exhausted by the end of the day because he was so empathetic.
Yeah.
Right? So this would not have been what it was without Gordon, and it's such a wonderful story because first of all, he taught me to do what I know how to do because he let me into the process. He didn't go, okay, you're the client, sit there. It was like he mentored me and taught me how to do this. But
Didn't know
it's,
that.
but also what's fascinating about him, so it's talking about his Hanna-Barbera career, and he told me this, obviously when I was going through my own hard times, it's like, you know, that was his career. He was in his 40s, he was, you know, the lead of Hanna-Barbera, voice direction, and then he was out, like that. And he was just knocked low and thought, well, who am I now? That's the end of my career, what do I do? But what that did is it opened up the fact that he went into 4-camera television, started directing television. And like that became his career. And then you look at this, and he used his VO directing skills on our projects, of course, as well as many others. But also because he was such a pioneer and so willing to just like, you know, drop any pretense and just learn and just embrace learning. He, the fact that he came on, I mean, people didn't shoot mocap like this before we did it. And that's all a credit to Gordon because he was shooting it like a stage play, which he had experience in, and like 4-camera television, which he had experience in. And therefore that became the model for the industry, and that's all him. And he doesn't get the credit for it, right?
Yeah, I never thought about
I
that.
think now he can. Now he should.
Right.
Now he will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we wrap this up,
Yes.
as the creator and the spirit, the warden of this game, what would you hope would be his takeaway?
Gordon's.
No, no.
Oh, Nolan's. His takeaway. I didn't know who we were referencing. That he did good, right? That you created this indelible character, right? That it's sort of like you're as well known as any movie star, right? More so. I mean, I remember it was so clearly one of the reviews by a reviewer who had actually been really skeptical about the game. And he had said, I don't understand why we're supposed to care about this guy in the previews. Why are we supposed to care about a guy, this goofy guy in a t-shirt and jeans? Like, there's nothing iconic about him. There's nothing Kratos-like about him, right?
Oh, wow.
And look, that was a problem even inside Sony marketing. They didn't know what to do with this, and I just have to, we all have
Can
to
we give
keep
him a
saying,
scar?
I said,
or
what do you
a-
want, a top hat and a monocle, for Christ's sake? And the same reviewer, when he put out his actual review of the game, he just said, I was wrong. I said, why am I supposed to care about this guy in a t-shirt and jeans? And now I think he's the next Indiana Jones. So that's all on you.
Wow, man.
Well, I owe him,
I helped.
I owe him.
A lot of money.
I owe him a steak dinner or something.
Yeah, at the very least.
Yeah.
No, well, I've also always said, you know, you were kind enough to give birth to this character, but you allowed me to help raise him.
Well, and again,
Let
I
him-
think that's what Gordon taught us, that it's not about white knuckling, holding the reins and not white knuckling control. It's about letting go. It's about creating a space, whether people understand the scaffolding you're trying to hang this on, and then they can be all kinds of creative, you know? And then you just have to have the holistic brain and and the desire to go. If somebody comes up with a better idea than I had, then it is, or an idea is as good as I had, then it's the better idea. And if it's better, I have to have the ability to go, that's fantastic, we're doing that.
Right.
And I'll shuffle things around it, right?
Best idea wins.
Yeah, absolutely, best idea. But that takes confidence and humility, right?
Absolutely.
And it takes the ability to kind of chase down the whole web of holistic connections in the game and go, that improves the thing, it doesn't break anything, we're doing that.
I think confidence is a byproduct of humility.
But confidence often looks like ego, right?
Looks like it.
Yeah, and it's not, right? It's actually
I
just...
think to the insecure it does.
Exactly,
Or
right?
to the arrogant it looks that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I can't thank you enough for
Well, I think
what this was.
I can't thank you enough.
I can't wait to play this again. I want to go back. I'm
Now
fired
you
up
want
to
to platinum a
crushing.
little bit?
I want to find it. No, now I
There's
want to.
about
I want to
30
treasure hunt.
treasures
I
that we
want to
missed.
find those treasures I missed.
Well,
You didn't even rotate them and then admire them like you could have.
like yeah, because you can move this.
I wasn't told that was an
We
option.
needed to get through the game.
And see, there's the thing. All of those are actual, real items that are sourced from things from the locale and from the era. So that's how seriously, that's a real map from the era that we use as a background. We got from, a high-res version from a museum. Like we took it really seriously. Even if we ended up going just like the Spaniards, they never left. Shoot.
As we move forward, any because we should have had you here earlier, but
That's okay.
Any bits of advice that you would have for our burgeoning player over here?
Uncharted 2.
Don't listen to you because you keep saying the wrong buttons.
Well, at certain times,
Thank you.
It's been
Thank you.
Sometimes I get it wrong.
I just watched the first 4, so
sure.
maybe I'm just giving you a hard time anyway.
Oh no, a worthy hard time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've probably gotten there now, but use cover, man. That's what it's there for.
No doubt.
Right?
Yeah. What about that?
And it makes you look cool.
It does. Remember, we did all the crouches. I was telling them. I
Yeah.
was explaining
Thighs
all the
would burn.
crouches and
We
everything.
had you do everything that you could except for that one jump.
That one jump.
And thank God Mike was there that day.
That was in
Mike-
the second game. That was when I run out after Lazarevich kills Jeff. We'll get to that.
Like,
Spoilers.
yeah, that was great. Okay, let's do another one with
And
Mike
then,
now.
then I
Yeah.
did that jump, and I do you remember though?
Oh,
talk
vividly.
about humility. I jumped, and I looked at Amy, and she looked at me, and I went, "You need to get somebody else to do
And
that."
he was thankfully standing on the sideline.
I was laughing so hard because I just kind of went, "Hey."
No, that was Mike Nukatis.
Mike Mikadis, phenomenal stuntman.
Yeah, a lot
Oh,
of
man.
Drake is him. I mean, not to take credit away from you, but like
So
a lot of
many-
that physical
Well,
signature is his too.
Side note, little tangent about Mike Mikadis.
That's all this show
The
is.
stuntman. What was interesting is because of Uncharted, as I've told people
I
this
love
story
this story.
before, J.J. Abrams put me in Star Trek Into Darkness. And Peter Weller was the captain of the Vengeance, and I was off to the right at this standing console.
What was your line?
Power coming online, sir. Thank you. But what more interesting, when I got there, I look over, and to the left, at the identical, mirrored station, is Mike Mikadis.
No way.
Yeah, and JJ came up, and he was talking to me, and I said, "Do you realize you have the two Drakes here?" He goes, "What?" I said, "That's my stuntman." He goes, "Mike, I use Mike on everything." I did, really?
At Small World,
so there we
he
go.
is Graham McTavish's stunt double on
Preacher?
Yeah.
Shut your
Is he
mouth.
really? I didn't know that. I got to talk to Graham about that.
That guy's like borderline
Ooh.
stalker level.
By the way,
Yeah.
Graham McTavish,
He's actually more
Lazarevich.
I
Do we
okay.
tease that?
I was going to ask a question because that's the way we end everything, but it seems pretty obvious. So I might ask it a bit more rhetorically. What do we play next?